Hi, everybody. My name is Peter Chittum. Who here came because you actually read the title to my talk? Oh, that's great. Thank you. Any admins in the audience? Administrators? Administrators who want to be more developer-y? Yeah? Okay. Developers? Lots of developers. You're going to be bored, I swear. Well, maybe not. I shouldn't presume. So my name is Peter Chittum. I lead the developer evangelist team here in the EMEA region. We're very strong, small, but mighty force of 3. And actually, you can watch my colleague Renee Winkelmeyer talking about Lightning apps in one of the other rooms in the next time slot. That's my Salesforce branded slide. That's my forward-looking statement. Don't plan on making any, but if I do, don't buy any software because of it. This talk came about because we have this new cool way of working with Salesforce projects called Salesforce DX. Who's heard of it? Hey, I love Salesforce DX. Lots of fun. We have this command line interface that we're now asking people to use to interact with Salesforce servers, and we've never done that before. And so it occurred to me there's probably a lot of people who don't maybe use command lines, even if you're a very experienced Salesforce developer or user. Is there anyone who's like that in the audience today? Oh, cool. This is like 2. Wow, awesome. I'm doing really well so far. Who wants to learn the command line, though? Yeah, is anyone who wants to learn the command line feel a little sheepish about trying? I did. I'll cop to that. So let's dive in. First of all, I'm using a Mac. What does that mean? It means I'm using a particular type of command line called bash, just because I'm lazy and I haven't installed another kind. That's the default one that comes with a Mac. These days, if you try really hard, you can make Windows run bash too. It's called Windows Subsystem for Linux. And of course, bash is the default shell for most Linux distributions out there. So what I'm doing today, you can pretty much do on every major platform that's out there, okay? So that's good news. And of course, I wrote this talk because this is what most people think of as command line if you've not used it very much, right? And I agree, this looks really scary if you don't know what's going on. There's actually like 3 parameters and that kind of thing. It's actually not that much, but it doesn't make a lot of sense if that's the first thing you look at. And so I like to take things back to a more palatable level, because one thing that you might have done in the past is have a text file, let's say, with a list of something that you wanted to alphabetize. And here, so it can fit on the slide, I've put 4 names, but let's say it's like 4,000 names, right? What would you do? You'd probably copy and paste that into an Excel spreadsheet, reorder it, right? Because Excel's great for that. And then you'd have your alphabetized names, right? Or you could just type sort names.txt, and you could have the exact same thing. Which one are you going to do, right? Excel. But hopefully soon, sort names.txt. And that's the point, is that when you look at command lines from this perspective, maybe it doesn't look so scary, possibly. Yeah? Who gets that? I mean, is anyone confused by sort names.txt? Yeah, it's actually pretty straightforward. And it's so straightforward, I think it's worth a quick demo, because this is actually something that I, myself, used the command line for not too long ago. Let me find, OK, one of these has the right terminal window. It should say demo 1. There it is. Of course, and let's make it bigger, because I got everything the right size before I plugged in the monitor. OK, so in here, if I show you what's in the file system, I have something called names.txt. And if I show you the contents of that, because there's a command that does that, it's called cat. Any cat people in the room? Yeah, I like cats too. So you can see there's a lot of names in here. This is actually something where I'd exported a report because I owned the sessions for Dreamforce last year for Developer Track. And I had already exported the report. I didn't want to run it again. I didn't want to have to change my report. I just wanted to take the names I had and find out how many of them were there. Very simple thing, right? So how did I do that? Well, the first thing I did was exactly what you saw, sort names.txt. And then I said, OK, let's take those, and let's just find the unique versions of those. And handily, there's a function that's misspelled, unique. They did that a lot in bash early days. Not much memory. You had to do it. And then I was like, okay, so I have unique values. Let me count those. And if I do WC minus L, and now I know that I had 20 names. And I forget why I needed 20 names, but I typed about 20 characters, and I went from a whole lot of names, not knowing how many, to I knew exactly how many names I had. Didn't take that much effort. And now I'll confess, because I'm still new to the command line too, especially Bash. I actually grew up on a command line that's called VAX VMS. Anyone else? Whoa, high five to you. And when I was learning VAX VMS, it was very intuitive, and there was this other thing called Unix, and I thought, who's ever going to use Unix ever? Little did I know. Yeah, anyway, so I forget exactly why I needed to know that there were 20 names, but I did. I looked it up, found it, and it was pretty straightforward, right? It's actually pretty easy. Now, I'm going to explain what I just did here in a moment, but bear with me, because there's more to this story. All right. So let's state some obvious things. First of all, what is the command line? Command line is an app. That's really all it is. It runs little apps, right? The command line it's usually referred to as a shell or a terminal. And those little commands work in a particular way. And the reason I called my talk, if you can write a formula field, you can use a command line, is because that's how these commands kind of work. We have some data that goes in, it transforms the data that comes in, and some more data comes out, right? The data in, by the way, is either going to be a file, or it's going to be data they call it streamed in, so it's kind of passed from one thing to the next. And then the data out is called a stream as well. And so the data in standard in, the data out's called standard out. And if that's not like a function in a formula field, I don't know what is, right? I pass some data, it basically filters that, and it passes out some other data. So that's exactly how command line commands work. You can even get them to run sequentially. So I want one thing to happen and then the next. And I can make it so that when the one thing happens, it passes the data to the next thing. And that starts to be where it's really powerful. So if I want sort of thing one to happen and then thing two, I separate it by a semicolon. If I want thing one to happen if I want thing two to happen only if thing one didn't throw an error, then I put a double ampersand. But if I want thing one to pass its data to thing two, then I use this thing called a pipe symbol. And that's why we call it a pipe symbol, because we're piping the data from thing one to thing two. Does anyone know that's why they called it a pipe symbol? Yeah, a few of you do. Yeah, that's cool. Now the rest of you do. Now, who here has ever written a formula field like this? Anyone? Yeah. What is this formula field doing? Call it out. This is the audience participation portion.
6 or 7, whatever the hour is which is in the date field.
Exactly. It's taking the hour from the time value and transforming it to text, right? And that's important because you might have a text-based formula field, perhaps, right? So another way to sort of look at this, so there we go, there's the answer, right? My date field has a date value, we pass it in, we get out the text version of the hour. Another way to sort of represent this is like this, where I have this date time value, and then it goes through time value function, and then that passes something to the hour function, and then that passes something to the text function. And so when you wrap one function inside of another, it's sort of like you're passing data from one function to another. And so you could actually represent it sort of like this, where my date field gets passed to time value, to hour, and then to text. And then if you sort of substitute that for the pipe symbol, you have exactly how the command line works, which is I have essentially commands are little functions. They pass data in, they transform it, they pass data out, right? And then I pass it to the next one with a pipe symbol, and then I pass it to the next one. And where my command initially was just plain sort, right? But when I took sort and passed that to unique and passed that to word count, I created an amalgam that was much more powerful than any one of those commands. And that's the power of the command line. Just like with functions in your formula field. Okay. One last thing about commands before I revisit that first demo and kind of talk a little bit more about it, and that's that commands also have parameters. So let's say my command is cook an egg, right? The parameter says how I'm going to cook the egg, right? Am I going to scramble it, make an omelet, frittata? I just like saying frittata. It's nice. So let's jump back in, take a quick look at that previous demo, and then we'll keep on going because I've got a lot to say. Let me go find it. Right, so revisiting this. Now, I'm just going to clear this and move it to the top. And then there's a cool thing you can do where if I just hit the up arrow a couple times, I get back to the previous command. It actually tracks the history, which is nice. And that's not distracting at all. So sort names.txt, right? So it takes that, and then we saw the output, which was I have the sorted but non-unique values. And then imagine that that was wrapped inside of unique, right? And then imagine that was wrapped inside of word count, which is what WC stands for, even though I'm counting lines. That's exactly how your nested formulas work, or your nested functions worked in your formula, isn't it? Okay?
Sorry, just a stupid question. Where is names.txt? Is that the file you've got?
Yeah, did I not show that in the file system when I started? I thought I did. That's okay if I didn't, because I can do it again. ls minus al. ls says list the files. Minus al are some parameters for how I list the files. And there it is right there, names.txt. Okay? Yeah. So names has to be out there. Or we could pipe the value from one command to the next one. All right.
Where are your names? Where's that list of names stored then?
That file.
The current folder. He's working with
Yeah.
the current folder.
Yeah.
So it hasn't said otherwise. Right.
Yeah. So I'm in a folder every time I operate something. I'm going to get to file commands in a minute. So that's actually next. Speaking of that, oh, there you are. Ta-da. Okay. A couple of other things we can do with the standard out. One thing is that we can redirect, and what that says is write this to the file system somewhere. Problem with redirect is it always replaces the file that you name, so you want to be really careful, and if you don't want to do that, you do the double greater than, and then that's going to append to the end, and that's maybe safer if you don't want to just wipe out what you just did. So like I said, file system is kind of where you start with command line, and where, even though I started with something different. But yeah, so if I want to change directory, list files, I want to make directories, create files, remove directories, remove files, all that stuff is on there as commands, and that was kind of what I wanted to do next. So, and I just realized I didn't set up this demo quite the way I wanted to, but that's okay. Yes, this one will work. So let's make you bigger. And clear, and then let's make sorry, I should have had this one open. Because what I like to do when I talk about file commands is actually have the file system open. So there's my CLI test. There we go. And let's make that the right size so we can see all of it. There we go. And I'm just going to bring up my, okay, so if you see the command line over here, right, where it says CLI test, okay, that is referring to that directory right there. Let's make it a little closer. Oh, that's better, CLI test, okay? And so I can start to move around. So for example, if I wanted to go into demo 1, CD, and now there's a nice thing I can do where if I sort of tab enough times, it'll show me what's out there. Okay, so that's just hitting tab. And so I can say, okay, demo 1, and cd space ... says go back up to directory. There's always a home directory for the user, and I can just do like cd, and it'll take me there, and that's a little squiggly. And if I want to go back to the directory I came from, cd dash is really handy for that. Okay, so there's just cd is change directory, that's all it means. And then the next thing that we want to do is maybe make a directory. So mkdir. Demo 2, it's what we're on right now, so that's, and there you can see it just popped up. Yeah, so it wasn't there before. There we go, there's my demo 2 directory. And then I can cd into demo 2. And while I do that, I'm just going to make sure I'm clicked on that so you can kind of see what goes on in there. So now let's say I want to create a file. I can do touch, file 1, and then you'll see that that goes in there. There's file 1. If I want to get rid of it, rm file 1, and then it's gone. Now, if I want to actually put something in the file, I can do something like echo. Echo just says take this and output whatever comes after it. So I could say echo hello. Okay, and then it says hello. If I want to take the hello and put it in the file, and remember the symbol? Anyone? Anyone? Greater than. So greater than hello.txt. And then you can see hello.txt. Cat was a thing I used earlier to show the contents. Hey, there's Will. And hello.txt. And then I can kind of do some fun things. So there's this really cool utility that I was playing with earlier called say, hello.txt.
Hello.txt.
Ooh, except, let's see. What I need to do is cat hello.txt and pipe it to say, hello. And then I can do kind of fun things. So if I do echo hello, and then do like a bunch of those, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. And then I can do, where's my cat? Cat hello.
Hello, 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 hello.
And you can even do the sort of fun things like say minus v, what's it called? Good? Good news. I'm totally spacing on the, oh well. In any case, I can change voices. Let me try one more. Let's see if Fiona is there.
Hello, 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 hello.
That's the Scottish version, you know, to our friends up north of the border. Okay, so enough playing around. Let's kind of get on to the meat of this. But you start to get a sense for, you know, what everything that you do in the graphical user interface is here. You just need to learn the word or the abbreviation. Okay? All right. I am 15 minutes in. Okay, this will be interesting. All right. Yep, just did that. Okay, so there's a bunch of other commands that are really powerful. Some of the commands can get quite long. Alias allows you to sort of create a shortcut for that. You already saw me use cat. This just actually is meant to concatenate two files. But there's also a head that reads from the top down on the file and tail that reads from the bottom up. And tail is really nice. If something's actively being written to it, you can actually just watch as new stuff appears in there. There's dog. Actually, I'm kidding. There isn't a dog. I just threw that in for the dog people because of the cat thing. But I could create an alias called dog, as that was kind of my point here. WC, you saw before, stands for word count. It actually counts other things besides words. And that's my bad joke, yes. grep is super powerful. Grep is kind of the default way to go and find stuff because you can look inside of files and it'll spit out every line that matches a particular pattern. And I'll show this in a second. And then sed is another one. Oh, grep, by the way, stands for, what is it? Global Regular Expression Print. Feel free to look up what that all means. And then stream editor, or sed, is a way that I can actually change data as it's flowing through something. And so to show how this works, I sort of like to have some fun. And I realized like one of our legal counsel's in the room, so she may wag her finger at me a little bit later. OK, so I have the forward-looking statement. Who does not love the forward-looking statement? I love the forward-looking statement. We all get lots of fun out of that. But so say, for example, I wanted to take a look at that. If I wanted to see like the top, I could do head minus n10 forward-looking.txt, and there I can see the start. I can also do tail. There we go. That's the bottom. Or I can do something like, you already saw cat, so that's fine. But I can do something like grep. So grep, go look for the word statement in forward-looking.txt. And I can see every line. Actually, let's make that a little easier to see. Let's repeat that. Right, so I can see every line that has the word statement. 5 minutes. So this is where it kind of gets fun. So let's say we didn't want statements. We're all done. We're done with statements. We're tired of statements. What do we call them? Forward-looking. Which? Ah. I love you. All right, so so what we're going to do is we're going to look for all those lines that have statement in it, and then, oops, we want pipe. We're going to send that to sed, or stream editor, and we're going to substitute the word, actually put that in quotes just in case, substitute the word statement for the word Smurf. And now, this presentation may contain forward-looking Smurfs that involve risks. Now, imagine this was like some text in a CSV file, right? Who here has ever searched through a massive CSV file for a value to replace? Bam, and I've just done that with sed, okay? All right. With that, I have to actually start up my demo, demo script, because this last one's a bit hairy. Now, of course, the whole reason I'm doing this talk is because we have this new, cool command line for Salesforce DX, right? And who here wants to use that command line? I know I do. I love using it every day. And so the better you know how to use command line tools in general, the more productive I think you'll be with Salesforce DX. At least I think so. Maybe you share my point of view. So let me go and find my directory where I'm going to be working on this. Yes. Da-da-da. And I want to, OK, so the first thing I'm going to do is find my script. There we go. So I'm going to clone a repository. And the nice thing about Salesforce DX, git clone sfdx Dreamhouse. And we'll put that into London's call. OK, so I've just cloned a source directory. This contains everything I need to create an org that I could work in. So let's go and do that. So sfdx force org create. I'm going to say -s. That makes it my default user for the org. -a is an alias, and we'll call it London. And then -f. And this hasn't been working for me today, but I should be able to. Yeah, look ahead, but I'll just type it out. Config / project-scratch def.json. OK, so what that's going to do is give me an error. Thank you very much. CD London's call, and then we'll just do that all over again. Thank you. I always appreciate a little bit of help. So that'll go and actually create the org that I'm going to work in. There we go. So next thing I want to do is I want to take the code and the metadata that's in here and push it to the org. Now this works with this new kind of org, which is called a scratch org. So sfdx force org push. That's going to take all the metadata here. sfdx force org push. So that's interesting. Force source push. Thank you. All right. That's going to take the source that's in this directory and push it to that org. The next thing I'm going to do is I have to assign a permission set. I have to create some data. And then at that point, I should be able to open it and actually access that org. I'm going to shortcut it things and kind of jump right into the next bit, which is what are we going to do to maybe change some data in that org? Okay? This can take a little while. It's a little bit of a bigger project. Okay.
The SFTX Dreamhouse, did you copy that locally?
Yeah, I copied it locally. Yeah, the Dreamhouse project is big. And when I do demos, I never clone from GitHub. Yeah, it's otherwise I'd be waiting twice as long. Okay, so sfdx force user perm set assign, and the name of that is called Dreamhouse. By the way, that is up here. If I look for my, where are you? Permission set. It's just this thing right here. Okay, so that'll assign that permission set. And then I should be good to go. So sfdx force data tree and import. And the plan is called data. Yeah, I don't think it's going to let me do that. Sample data plan dot JSON. There we go. So I've imported a bunch of stuff now, and I'm ready to work with it. Like I said, I could open the org, and that's just sfdx force org open. It is really nice to open your org from the command line. In fact, who here gets tired of remembering org usernames and stuff? Yeah, I know I do. So using the DX command line is great because you can just sort of tie every org into your command line and then just open it when you need it, just like I did. In fact, I have some default ones in there. All right, so let me clear this so we can see a little bit better. Now, the next thing, so now that I have some data, sfdx force data sockle query, and Quip is saying it needs to install something new, which isn't helping. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm going to query -q select ID name, and I want status C from property C, and let me close that, and I want to see it in a JSON format. All right, just double check. Force data sockle query -q select ID comma name comma status. Yeah, that looks good. Now it's going to spit it out in kind of an ugly bunch of JSON text. I can do it in a table, but what I want to do is exactly what I just described. I want to export some data, modify it, and then push it back to my org, just like I might do if I was an admin trying to get some data fixed that I want to work with. Okay? So the next thing I want to do, we have to take the JSON and we have to parse it somehow into a CSV. So there's a couple of utilities. I'm using one called JSONV, not because it's the most powerful one, but it demos really well. There's another one called JQ that's much more powerful. If you want to do better transformations, I would recommend that one. So JSONV, I want the ID. Hi, Todd, Justin, how's it going? Yeah, good? Good? All right. How much time do I have? Time's up. 12 seconds, okay. Oh, a minute and 12 seconds, I heard, yeah? Yeah, okay, cool. So really quickly, JSONV ID name. Status. Now, of course, I could have saved this, and I want that from result.records. So I'm just basically referencing data in this big gobbledygook of JSON. And what I should now get, is a nice CSV. Now, my only problem is I don't have a header. So I have to do a couple of bits of magic here where I'm going to take that, and I'm going to cat it. So pipe cat slash data header .csv, and then the dash substitute that, and then there we go. So I have CSV with header, and now I can start to have some fun. So what I'm going to do is all of these nulls, I'm going to replace their values. So, yes, so pipe sed s null, because it is text right now, available. Okay. Oh, I missed a, I see what I did. Let's fix that. Try one more time, single quote. I did something wrong again. Oh, I didn't terminate it. It's so picky. There we go. Okay, so now everything says available. And so what I can do is I can redirect that to updates.csv. And then if successful, double ampersand, I will do sfdx force data bulk upsert -s to, so which object? Property C -f updates.csv, and use the ID field as an ID. And if I typed all of that right, I didn't, I don't think. Yep. Try one more time. minus I. Now it should be good. So take the data, export it to query, transform it to CSV, substitute the value, write it to the file system, write it back to Salesforce, and I didn't even have to open Excel. Woo! Yeah. Okay. And if I had time, I would query and show you, but trust me, it worked. I'll show anyone afterward, but I do need to go and let the next person talk. Happy to chat more afterward. Try out Salesforce DX. I will have my slides also on SlideShare under, I think, just Chittum. So